Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Sacred Frequency Podcast. I am your host, Scotty the High-Strung Hippie, and we will be bringing you on a beautiful journey today. We have a fantastic episode in store for you. Our guest is someone that we have definitely been looking forward to having on the show for a very long time. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about Sacred Frequency. We are the official podcast of Sacred Echo, a nonprofit community that is consistently creating a beautiful, carefree space for everyone, regardless of location, spiritual affiliation, or whatever other label they put on you. The space I'm referring to consists of a website, events, workshops, retreats, and a podcast. At the moment, while in the future, the space will actually be tangible structures where we will gather, heal, garden, discuss, learn, teach, and most importantly, grow. Now, like I said, Sacred Frequency is the voice of Sacred Echo, but in no way represents the views or opinions of Sacred Echo, its members, affiliates, or sponsors. So basically, the opinions you hear are mine. So if there's an issue, you can blame me personally. Now, one of my favorite personal quotes is, "There's strength in unity, so build your community." And that's what we are all about here at Sacred Echo, that community building. You can grow in whatever capacity you feel you need growth in. So go ahead and hop on over to sacredecho.org and join us on the ground level of something incredible. Now, speaking of Sacred Echo and Sacred Frequency, there's a sacred frequency that I'd love to mention. It is the buzzing of a bee. That's typically produced by its wing movement, and it falls within a frequency range of 200 to 400 hertz. Now, the different bees put off different frequencies, but it is absolutely amazing that these creatures, aside from everything else that they do, put off this sacred frequency. And the other thing that they produce is honey. It's definitely used to treat many conditions, and we here at Sacred Echo and Sacred Frequency are all about holistic options. So honey is used to treat eye diseases, asthma, throat infections, everything. It's called Apiary, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, is the scientific name for medical treatment with honey. And now that I mentioned that, I'd like to introduce our guest, Sonny, the owner of Sunsplash Nursery, formerly of New Smyrna Beach, now Sunsplash Nursery in Edgewater. It is an apiary. It's an actual beautiful property. We're so glad we're actually able to be out here on location at his apiary. Sonny, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Awesome. Welcome to the Sacred Frequency Podcast. We're so happy to have you on. I'll just go ahead and get started. What exactly got you into beekeeping, and how did you get started in this business?
I have to blame my friend Ross Pell from Pell's Citrus in Osteen. Ross was a professional surfer about 36 years ago, and I was running the world tour, and he would come to my house and surf all day and then stay and spend the night and go back to his 100-acre nursery in Osteen the next day.
Okay.
And he kept telling me, he says, all you do on this 10-acre property, Sonny, is all you do is mow the grass. You ought to start a nursery. I said, why? Why would I ever want to do that? Well, one thing led to another, and sure enough, I did. And now, 36 years later, here I am.
Oh, that's amazing. What was the biggest challenge in the beginning? I mean, just from the outside looking in, I could see a million challenges on starting an apiary, a bee nursery, maintaining something that's alive. So what was the biggest challenge in specifically the beginning?
In regards to the nursery or beekeeping?
Both, I guess. Yeah.
Well, in the beginning with the nursery, it was just a matter of setting up and getting the land ready to work on 10 acres to produce plants and trees. And like growing a garden, you're going to have to get a lot of pots, get a lot of dirt, and get a lot of cuttings and seeds and stuff to grow and stuff. Right. So it was a slow process, a little bit at a time, until things started stacking up and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Wow. That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. You definitely have to have the heart for it. I can tell it's a labor of love. So what exactly does a typical day look like for a beekeeper or yourself here at Sunsplash? Is it Sunsplash Nursery, Sunsplash Farms, or either one?
Well, the corporate name is Sunsplash of New Smyrna Beach Incorporated.
Okay.
The website is known as sunssplashnursery.com.
Right. Awesome. So just walk me through a typical day here, from wake up to kind
Well,
of bedtime?
in here, where we're at now in Edgewater, the first things we do is get up and feed the chickens.
Okay. Yes, because it's not just an apiary. It's a full-on farm.
From there, the next thing we do is have the crew comes in, and we do have a good crew, and we take care of what's going on. We do landscaping and irrigation work, so usually it's a few minutes of planning the day and deciding where we're going to go do some work and get things done. As far as the nursery, there's always something to do. Water the plants, trim the plants, check for bugs, do all those kind of things. You know, the word nursery, you have to think about that. It's a nursery. You're being a nurse, and you've got patients.
Certainly.
The patients are your plants.
Certainly.
They're just like your children, and you have to go and see what they need, and it's a daily process.
Absolutely. And I assume the same for the bees, kind of like being your children.
The bees are a lot more. I have an analogy. If you have a dog or cat, you got to feed it every day, give it water and food, and tend to it.
Sure.
Bees are way, way easier. You can get them set up in their hive and then let them go for a couple of weeks. You don't have to do anything. Go out there and check, see how they're doing. And if they're doing okay, leave them alone.
That's awesome. So they're kind of set it and forget it with a bee.
It is, to a certain
That's
point.
cool.
Of course, there are points where there is some maintenance that's required.
Sure.
There is some prevention of predators that's required.
Oh, wow. What predators? I was not aware bees had predators. I mean,
bears are your worst enemy.
Oh, okay.
As long as you don't live near bears, then you're okay there. But other than that, there are some diseases that are here with us now that 30 years ago were not. They've been imported from other countries.
Yes.
There's a varroa mite. It's an insect. It's like a tick on a dog. It's a tick on a bee, and it's called a varroa mite. And we have to address the management of that. There's also an insect called the hive beetle.
The hive beetle.
Hive beetles are a problem, and we have to guard against those.
Sounds like a nickname for a terrorist.
And then finally, there's a white wax moth, and those are the three main insects that give us trouble. Ants aren't a big problem.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the education on that. I was not aware. That's what this podcast is all about, learning new things. So what equipment or what's the essential equipment and tools needed specifically for an apiary? I know I've seen my grandfather had like 3 beehives. He had that smoker we used to play with, but I never really knew what it did.
If a person wants to become a beekeeper and they're starting from scratch, it's an initial investment of approximately $500 to get the tools and equipment and the bees that you need to start.
That's not bad.
So some of the things that are basic is a beehive box.
Okay.
On top of the box is a secondary box, which is called a super. And I'm not sure why that term was used, but that's what it's called.
Okay.
And then tool-wise, you need a smoker.
Yep.
You need what they call a hive tool, which really is just a pry bar.
Okay.
And after that, those are your basics. And, of course, a bee suit. You definitely want a bee suit.
And if anybody out there is wondering why, then you shouldn't be listening. So how do you select the right location for an apiary? I'm assuming there are some locations that just aren't good. And I know having the mangrove honey, they have to be in the mangrove. So if you can maybe just kind of walk us through that process.
Yes, picking the right locations
Sure.
based on is there any food source nearby. You can place bees in one location, there's no food, and they're not going to do well.
Okay.
So you'd have to know your forest, you have to know your surroundings, you
Sure.
have to know where certain things grow that the bees would be able to feed from. And as far as mangroves go, you know, where we're at, a lot of people may not realize that from Ponce Inlet to Oak Hill in our lagoon, some people call it a river, but it's a lagoon.
The mosquito lagoon.
That is the world's largest concentration of mangrove on the planet.
Wow, that's
Now,
amazing.
the key word there is concentration. They are
Sure.
one next to the other. You could walk across the
Yep.
top of them.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the eye can see, 2 miles wide, 13 miles long, solid mangrove. And yes, on the shorelines, the shorelines are proliferated with sable palms, or otherwise known as a cabbage palm.
Okay.
And with that said, the cabbage palm blooms at the same time the mangrove does.
Okay.
So the more into the mangroves you are with your bees, the more pure the mangrove honey will be. If it's right on the shoreline, you're going to get a mix of sable palm and mangrove together, which is still great, but it's not just mangrove.
Now, am I correct in saying this? That's because a bee will only travel generally a mile from his hive. So if you have the hive in the middle of the river in the mangrove, it won't travel. But if it's on the shoreline, it can go.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Fantastic. And no, I'm not that smart. I actually took a tour of this exact farm at its other location about 3 years ago, and Sonny told me that, and I remembered. So it's a beautiful thing. Now, this is the fun part. I want to get into bee behavior and colony management. How do honeybees communicate and work together in the hive?
There are bees that are nurse bees. Those are the young ones that have just been born.
Okay.
And inside the hive is just like your home. There's maintenance to be done. There's
Sure.
babies to feed. There's cleanup and diapers to change. That's what the nurse bees do when they're first born. That's their job. A bee, by the way, a bee is born, lives, and dies. 6 weeks, it's over.
6 weeks, that's it. Okay, I was thinking 2, but 6 still.
So for the first week of life, up to the second week of life, the bee is a nurse bee, takes care of stuff in the home. After about 2 weeks, the older bees take the younger bees out and teach them how to fly and get back to the same place.
Oh, wow. That's
and
amazing.
Then finally, the last 2 to 3 weeks of life, they are out foraging. They are leaving the hive, going to get nectar and pollen, and bringing it back. And then that's the end of it.
It's absolutely incredible. It takes a human being 5 years to probably effectively be able to get up, walk to the fridge, make a sandwich. You know, I think at 5 years old I could make my own sandwich. Bees at 2 weeks are already going out and getting their own food. And at 6 weeks, no longer with us. So, wow, that's absolutely amazing how nature works. What are the most important things to monitor in a healthy hive? Or what are some of the most important things to monitor to make sure the hive is healthy?
Every hive has one queen.
Okay, sure.
Every home usually has only one queen as far as people go.
Sure.
So the queen is the boss, and her job is to lay eggs.
Yep.
Since there's an attrition rate.
Sure.
All right, so how many eggs does she lay? She can lay in the vicinity of 2,000 eggs a day.
Wow.
When she's happy. And like all queens, you have to know how to keep the queen happy. And what keeps her happy is realizing there's food being brought into the hive. She says, why should I lay eggs and have babies if you can't feed them? So she stops.
Wow.
So keeping the hive fed keeps the queen laying eggs.
Wow, that's amazing. So keep the queen happy, and
after that, then you would certainly have the brood being raised by the nurse bees. You have bees want to store goods, store honey, store food for emergencies, so they're building up vast volumes of honey in the hive just in case there's a trying time and there's no nectar. They have the stuff saved.
Right. That's awesome. Well, speaking of the honey, how much they produce, how do you determine when it's the right time to harvest?
So as they are gathering the nectar, bringing it back to the hive, they go to the flower, they swallow the nectar. It's in their stomach, mixing with the bee's stomach enzymes. They go back to the hive, regurgitate the nectar into the wax cell. It's not honey yet.
Right.
And at that point, they fan it with their wings to evaporate the water content. Once they evaporate it down, and the magic number is anywhere below 21% by volume water content, then they put a cap on top of the wax cell.
Wow.
Kind of like putting a lid on a jar.
Sure.
And now, as there are thousands of wax cells in each of our honey frames, we have to wait till they're all capped. And once they're all capped, then we know that frame is available to be harvested.
Yeah, that's amazing. I never forget. I'm a vegetarian, but there's the vegans out there that won't eat honey, and they're like, it's bee vomit, and I was like, I don't give a beep what it is. It's absolutely incredible, so I'm gonna eat it. So what is the process here specifically at Sunsplash for extracting and bottling honey?
Well, we wait till the hives all the frames in the hive are capped, and there's 10 frames in the hive, and of the 10 frames, usually 7 of those are full of honey. The other 3 frames are usually full of babies, baby brood, young bees that have not hatched yet. And we pull the frames out. We have to take the lid off the jar. Every little cell's got a wax cap, so we have to break that cap, and they call it decapping. And then once that is done, we put all the frames into an extractor, which basically just spins it around. Centrifugal force causes the honey to sling out to the sides of the extractor, stainless steel, and it oozes down to the bottom of the extractor, which is conical shaped, and at the bottom is a hole where it comes out the port into your bucket. But before it goes in the bucket, we place a screen there to catch the bits of wax, the dead bees, anything that's in there coming out of the extractor that we don't want in the honey. And there is where all honey is filtered to a certain degree.
Right.
Even
if it says unfiltered, it's still filtered a little bit.
Yes, and there's a misunderstanding about the word unfiltered, because what's in the store is super filtered.
Sure.
What a beekeeper makes, you might use the word strained instead of filtered.
Yeah.
But it has to be, otherwise you're going to get debris in the honey.
This is kind of just an off-the-wall question, but there's delicacies out there, and people eat everything. Is there the dead bees, or the ones that are in the caps that didn't hatch? Is there any use for them? Do people like over in foreign countries consider that a delicacy and eat them, or?
Not that I'm aware of. And dead bees, bees die, and sometimes they die in the hive. But
sure.
The nurse bees, again, they're sweeping the floor. They just shove them outside and throw them out.
Poor bees. Now, I think I know the answer to this question. I do this myself quite a bit, but there's definitely different flavors of honey depending on what they pollinate. So the flavors if you're trying one versus trying another, is it subtle, or you're like, wow, that's a huge difference. It's a totally different honey experience.
Yeah, just like there's so many different kinds of flowers, and some flowers are red, some flowers are white, and between red and white or any other color, there's a vast difference in color.
Sure.
Well, same thing with the nectar that's produced by each flower. There's
sure.
a vast difference in the flavor of the nectar. Thus, the typical names like orange blossom, wildflower, saw palmetto, they each have their own flavor because of the source.
Yes. And once again, I'm going to rave about the black mangrove honey. First of all, I will mention this again, but go to sunssplashnursery.com. Do you ship worldwide?
I do not.
Okay. Just U.S.?
I do not ship.
Oh, you don't ship?
I don't ship.
Okay. Oh, I thought you did. Well, you guys definitely don't know what you're missing out on then. If you're ever in Edgewater, Florida, you come by Sunsplash Farms. It's absolutely amazing. So here at Sunsplash, how do you ensure sustainable beekeeping practices? Or what exactly are sustainable beekeeping practices to make sure that you can pass this down if you wanted to me? And then I could pass it on to my children.
Well, the first thing would be learning how to take care of your bees. So
sure.
That's the first thing. Teach somebody how to be a beekeeper. After that, taking care of your bees and sustaining them is there's more issues these days than there were years and years ago because of things coming in our porch that don't belong here. But other than that, occasionally you do lose a hive. You can start a hive and do everything right, and stuff happens like hurricanes,
right,
and other tragedies do happen, and you just have to know how to make new hives so that you constantly have hives in stock. But yeah, there's an attrition rate, and things come and go.
We actually brought you up, me and Kira, my wife, during the last hurricane, and we're like, what the hell does Sonny do with all of his mangrove hives? Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah, well,
I have no idea.
during Hurricane Ian, we watched 3,000 hives float away.
Yeah. Wow. Damn.
And lost them.
There's nothing you can do.
3,000 hives gone.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
wow.
so you have times when you're sad.
Yes.
You're very sad and challenged.
Wow, that's definitely frustrating. I guess I hate to say it, but that cost of doing business, the natural disaster, is nothing you can do about it. But that's definitely definitely got to be frustrating. So, what can everyday people do to protect the bee population? What? I'm not being a beekeeper, just a normal everyday person. There's got to be something that I can do environmentally that I'm doing to impact the bee population.
Well, bees need flowers, so anything that flowers, if you want to plant your yard up and make it as full of flowers as you can, no doubt that's helping the bee population. And really, that's about all you can do is provide a food source for them.
And am I correct on this? Trying to not use certain pesticides because doesn't that happen when a bee is pollinating? If they're pollinating something with a pesticide, does that transfer to the honey? How does that work?
There's just no way that pesticides come into the mix that's acceptable. So, as far as taking care of a yard maintenance-wise, insecticides, certain pesticides are required to fight off insects and bugs that eat your plants.
Sure.
At the same time, they can be detrimental to bees. So it's a tough balance to find a halfway point in between that. But the less pesticide use, the better.
Sure. Certainly, and especially being around here with the runoff into the lagoon, they're having a lot of issues with that.
That's
the
true.
Pesticides that are used into people's lawns right on the lagoon.
And fertilizers.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it's sad, but what we're doing to Mother Earth. So, what's the most rewarding part of running the apiary?
Eating the honey.
Amen. I work for a farm as well, and we started stocking Sonny's products because they were so good. I was the one who referred the owner of the farm to Sonny, and for that exact reason, eating the honey. I just wanted a nonstop source of Sunsplash Farms honey, and I got it, so it's pretty awesome. So how has Sunsplash grown over the years, and what's next for you? What's next in the pipeline?
Well, again, back to being a nursery first. We were a nursery first. And just like any business, you start small and you do good work, you have happy customers, and you take on bigger and bigger and bigger jobs. Mm-hmm. So the nursery business started in 1992. It started small. By 1995, we were doing large construction projects, landscaping-wise. To give you an idea, all the city parks in Ormond Beach, all the city parks in Port Orange, all the city parks in New Smyrna, the downtown DeLand streetscape, the North Causeway in New Smyrna, the boardwalk in Daytona, the Daytona Beach Airport. I can go on and on and on.
That was impressive.
And then from that point in 2000, 22 employees, 100 acres under production for plant material.
Wow.
And Disney was my customer.
Wow.
But after 2004, that's when everything peaked, and then our economy took a dive.
Sure.
We went into a recession and bottomed out in 2008.
Right.
And so with that said, in 2008, we had to shed the 100 acres. Disney went away. The 22 employees went down to 3, and we had to hang on and try to keep the lights burning. And then one day, probably about 2009 or 10, I was simply reading the local paper. There was an ad, and the ad said, "Beekeeper looking for property." And I go, well, I got property, and I got a vegetable garden, and I'm growing plants, so maybe that would be good. So I invited that beekeeper to come and meet with me and to see if they wanted to bring bees to my property. Well, who did I meet but the son of the #1 beekeeper in America from Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
And we made a deal, and he brought his bees, and I really wasn't that concerned about him for about a year, but I kept watching what he was doing. I kept watching the bees, and I got fascinated. I was fascinated by it.
No, it's fascinating without a doubt.
That led into, the sales side of me. I saw the option to be able to produce a product and try to introduce it to the market, which was the honey that I make.
It's absolutely fantastic. Which is awesome. That led me right into the next question. you sell your honey locally, I know, because we procure it. What makes it unique? I can tell people what makes it unique because I eat it every day. But coming from you, what makes your honey?
I think the biggest factor is the fact that it's actually raw.
Yes, amen.
From the hive directly into the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing
right.
like that in any local store like
sure.
Dixie Publix or any basic supermarket. It may say on the bottle raw honey. It is a lie. There's a phrase, truth in advertising.
Yeah.
If you believe that, then you're listening to the wrong show.
Kind of like an oxymoron, exactly. And there is such a difference in the raw honey versus that honey that you get in the plastic bear at the grocery store. No comparison. If that's all you've ever had, you don't know what you're missing.
Let me expound on that a little bit. Here's the difference on what everything in the store is. All right, honey has a nature of wanting to raw honey has a nature of wanting to crystallize in the jar.
Yep.
Okay, and so now, and it does that over a certain period of time. In the store, if you have a bottle of honey sitting up there from a certain producer and it crystallized, most customers are not going to buy it.
Right.
The store has to send it back. So in the mass market of honey, all the beekeepers sell the bulk honey to honey packing companies. All right, they buy millions of pounds from different beekeepers. Out of all the beekeepers in America, the best we can do is supply 50% of the demand. With that said, the rest of the honey for America is imported from other countries.
Wow. I know Germany has a big honey. Well, I think they do. I have a bunch. I collect honey. I've got probably, 40 bottles? Probably. Different. And the name of my studio, my podcast studio, is Omen Honey. I love honey. But I've got some from Germany. The store that I get it from when I'm in Orlando, a lot of it. So I never really put two and two together and thought Germany was a big place for beehives.
Let me finish the path of honey. So it goes to these honey packing companies. Mm-hmm. And again, they're buying it from different producers. It's all different honey. But they want to mix it all together to make a homogeneous honey that's the same color. So when they fill 1 million bottles, it's the same looking bottle in California as it is in New York.
Sure.
With that done, you're already getting a blended honey. It's not true orange blossom. It's not true wildflower because nobody makes just one orange blossom that can feed the nation.
Right.
All right, after they mix it all together, the next thing they have to do is stop the crystallization, and the way to do that is to super filter the honey.
Okay.
What does that mean? Well, they push it through a filter so small, it's 4 microns. How small is that?
Wow.
The honey won't go through. It's too thick.
Right.
So they heat it. They heat it
sure.
above 160 degrees.
Oh,
and now it's sterile. Everything in it, the pollen,
all the good stuff.
Any enzymes that were in that are gone. And as it comes out of the filter removed the grains of pollen. They're gone. So now you're just getting a bottle of sterile honey that's basically a bottle of sugar.
Right, yeah, but sugar, simple syrup.
There's one more dirty secret. In the process of super filtering and removing the pollen, it makes it impossible for the USDA to come in and take a sample, put it under the microscope, see the pollen grain, identify the flower and where it grew and what nation it came from. And there's certain countries that are barred from importing honey to the United States. China, India, due to pollution, heavy pollution.
Okay.
And now they smuggle drugs into the country. They smuggle honey into the country. It is the packing companies that are buying the smuggled honey. They super filter it so the USDA cannot test it and see where it came from.
Right. Wow.
And that's what you're buying in the store.
Wow, that's amazing. Never knew there was such a shady underbelly to honey, but that is, you learn something new every day.
Getting your honey from a beekeeper that's getting it straight from the hive into the bottle, and yes, there's a taste difference, there's a feel difference, there's everything about it is better.
All right, so let's get on to a couple of fun questions here. If bees could talk, what do you think they would say about their job?
They love their job. They are dedicated to their job. They would never have another job, and we're going to do this job till we drop dead.
I love it. For 6 whole weeks, baby. Now, what's one myth about bees that you'd like to debunk? Or maybe I can ask you a question. Are they truly mean? They're not after people. I mean,
oh, watch out!
The case?
No. There are docile bee species, and there are aggressive bee species.
Okay.
And most recently, I think everybody has heard of Africanized bees.
Yes, Africanized honeybees.
All right. Well, there's a serious issue there. And let's say the Italian bee species, and yes, there's Italian bees, there's Russian bees.
It's like the mob.
They're all different, and they all have their own characteristics.
I'm flying here.
So the docile bee, that's what we use because we work on them, and we don't want to have to fight with them.
No.
All right. But if you upset a docile bee, you can upset them, they can get mad at you, and they can sting you.
Okay.
But they're not after you.
Right.
With a Africanized, and if they were to chase you, you could run away and maybe go 50 feet, 60 feet away from the hive, and they would give up and go back home. The Africanized bee, once you get it upset,
yeah, that's it, right?
will come after you. It'll chase you. As far as you run, it'll keep chasing you, and worse yet, it'll call all its buddies, and they will all chase you.
I've seen that, and they said they actually, if you even jump in a swimming pool and try to swim under the water, they'll hover above you and wait for you to come up and just nail you.
And it can be a serious problem. Some people can die.
Oh, sure. Yeah, getting attacked by bees. I remember seeing there was a special on, not Dateline, one of those shows. Anyway, it showed the Africanized honeybees, and it was incredible.
So a hive can get Africanized by the wrong queen coming home.
Right.
And we work on hives, and occasionally we'll come across one of our hives that became Africanized, and we'll open up the hive and go to work on it as usual, and we'll start being attacked. They'll be hitting our bee suit, and they'll all be trying to get into our bee suits. And we take those hives and we burn them.
Wow. That's okay. Interesting. I guess that's the only way to stop the growth, correct? Is to...
Yeah, you have to wipe them out.
To exterminate it, wipe them out, yeah.
You don't want Africanized bees.
Certainly
right
not.
now, Volusia County is pretty much devoid of Africanized bees. But our bordering counties are not. They're definitely there. They're in Florida, and we're just trying to prevent them from coming into our own bee yards.
Yeah, they are scary. That's why whenever her mom has a horse farm out in Lady Lake, and there's some like storage areas or whatever, or the garage, and I'm very weary when I go in because I know with the Africanized honeybees, you can tap something, they could feel the vibration, and boom, come after you, and then that's it. I mean, you're done, and I'm like, so I'm definitely very, very, very weary of that. So, is there anything in closing? Anything? Say, for example, somebody had been thinking about being a beekeeper, wanting to do it. What's some advice that you would give somebody wanting to do it? Where would you? I know you said it's $500 to get the tools, but where would you start?
Find a beekeeper and have that beekeeper be willing to teach you what you need to know.
Okay.
And I will do that with anybody that's interested.
That's awesome.
I'm happy to teach and let people get started on being a beekeeper. We need more. We can only supply 50% of the demand. It's a great business.
Right.
Make all the honey you want to make. You'll sell every bit of it.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. And I buy every bit of it. It's amazing. So you said, and that's very awesome of you, that anybody that's interested in beekeeping can contact you, and you'll show them the ropes and walk them through the entire process.
Yep.
Could you provide an email for me real quick? So if people do want to get in touch with you, they can...
Well, if you go to my website, sunssplashnursery.com, all that information is there, my email, my phone number, everything.
Beautiful. All right, sunssplashnursery.com. And for some reason, I do apologize. I thought you shipped. I wish you did, so the people listening to this podcast could taste your honey.
I shipped in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got its issues.
But I have to tell you, whether it's UPS, FedEx, or the post office, I use glass.
Yes.
I don't want to use plastic jars.
Yep.
If you're going to ship, you got to use plastic. They will break your glass every time you ship
right.
it.
That sucks.
But and I got tired of that, and my customers want glass. And at this point, at 73 years of age, I'm not that interested in growing my business any bigger than it already is.
Amen.
But you come find me, I'll set you up.
That's so awesome. That's a beautiful thing about true artists, and I believe beekeeping is an art form. A true artist is willing to share their knowledge with people that are interested. So be sure to check out the website. Are you on social media? Facebook, Instagram?
Not.
Okay. All right, then check out the website, Sunsplash Nursery.
I am on Facebook.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Sunsplash Farm. Of course you're on Facebook. I've seen you 100 times on Sunsplash Farms on Facebook. So once again, Sonny, thank you so much for being on the show. It was absolutely phenomenal. Definitely very educational. Second time I've been out here, and I learned something new both times. So in closing, I'd like to say this is Scotty the High-Strung Hippie reminding you to speak your mind or else somebody else will do it for you. That's a personal quote of mine, and it's more factual than you might think. So say what you want and be heard. Now, check us out, Sacred Frequency Podcast on all social media platforms, Sacred Echo, Sacred Frequency. Shoot me an email, sacredfrequencypodcast@yahoo.com. And check out my other podcast, Hippie Fari. That's the word hippie, F-A-R-I. It's a reggae radio podcast. We're on all social media platforms, YouTube as well. So do something nice for somebody today. Grab flowers for your partner, smoke out a stranger, give the homeless person a buck. But whatever you do, do it from the heart. All good things start with the heart. So that's it for today. Go forth and make questionable decisions responsibly.